What's up, everyone? I'm Tate Goodlow, and welcome to the Red, Royal, and Blue podcast. Welcome into the Red, Royal, and Blue podcast. I'm your host, Tate Goodlow. This podcast is going to be just about the BYU Cougars, the Utah State Aggies, and the Utah Utes. I'm going to get it out of the way right now. I am a BYU fan, but I attended Utah State. And I'm going to be as objective as possible throughout this podcast. This is my first episode, and I can't wait to get into it. So with that, let's get into the recap. All right, so this episode is going to have a bit longer of a recap. We are already 2 weeks into the season, and we are just going to recap the first 2 weeks for each of these three schools. We'll start out with BYU. BYU is 2-0. They beat Portland State 69-0, and they beat Stanford 27-3. The Portland State game, as the score would say, was a slaughter of the Portland State Vikings. Bear Bachmeier went 7 for 11 for 97 yards, and he scored 3 TDs. Through the air. Let's see. LJ Martin had 8 carries for 131 yards, and Carson Ryan led the receiving with 2 receptions for 47 yards and a touchdown. So, let's get into the box score a bit from this game. BYU rolled out 3 quarterbacks in this game. Bear Bachmeier, as I said, 7 for 11, 97 yards. And 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, with a QBR of 65.9. McKay Hillstead had a few series as well in the second half. After BYU was already up 49-0, they decided to pull Bear Bachmeier from the game at that point. And McKay Hillstead went 4 for 5, 33 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. And Trayson Bourget went 1 for 2, 8 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. The rushing game, everybody had touches in this game. LJ Martin, 8 rushes, 131 yards. No touchdowns, but he had a long of 49 yards. Cody Hagan had 2 rushes, 57 yards, and a touchdown on a 57-yard jet sweep, where he just beat the defenders to the edge and he took it all the way for the score. Javesa Demooney, the brother of Raider Demooney, got into the game. 7 carries, 44 yards, no touchdowns. Ran for a long of 12. Sione Moa, BYU's number 2 back, 3 rushes for 33 yards, no touchdowns. And then Bear Bachmeier rushed for 5 attempts, 32 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So 5 total touchdowns by Bear Bachmeier in this one. And yeah, this game was just a slaughter from the start. BYU on their first drive had to punt, and then after that, it was just nonstop scoring. They blocked a field goal by Portland State, which was taken all the way back for a touchdown by Jack Kelly. And the Cougars never faltered in this game. Not a whole lot to take away from this game. I think Portland State's probably one of the worst FCS schools in the country. That's no hate to them. They're just not very good. It's just been a tough year already for them. They're 0-3 because they played in week 0, and it's not getting much better from there, if we're being honest. We'll just go team by team here. So BYU this past weekend, they played Stanford, as I said, 27-3. In this game, I was in attendance for this one, and it just felt unsatisfying, I would say. BYU, the defense was the star of the show. The defense was unbelievable. They've only surrendered 3 points all season, and they really shouldn't have given up 3 points in this one. There were some blown coverages that got Stanford into field goal range. In this one, Bear Bachmeier, 17 for 27, 175 yards. So not a bad game by Bear. This game, it was very conservative, I would say, in the play calling department. A lot of screen passes, a lot of dump off passes, and nothing super thrilling, I would say, in the offense. A lot of running the ball. LJ Martin had 18 carries for 110 yards. No touchdown. He had a touchdown. He was across the goal line clearly, and the officials said that he didn't cross the line. I don't understand why that one wasn't reviewed. It was definitely a touchdown. And BYU ended up kicking a field goal on that drive. So that took 4 points from the Cougars. And earlier in the game, Parker Kingston scored on a jet sweep, and there was a holding call that I did not agree with. That also took points off the board. BYU ended up kicking a field goal there as well. Big moment in this game. JoJo Phillips broke his clavicle and had surgery. I'd assume he'll be out for the rest of the year. If not, at the earliest, I think he'd be back for one game, maybe. But that's a tough break for the Cougars. He went to the year the number 2 receiver. That's going to give more opportunities to Tiger Bachmeier. Cody Hagan is going to have to step up in the receiving game as well. But a tough blow for the Cougars there. The defense, like I said, was unbelievable. Logan Latui led the defense with 6 tackles. Jack Kelly, 5 tackles and a sack. One was a strip sack. Isaiah Glasker, 4 tackles and a sack. Keanu Tonavasa got his first sack as a Cougar. Super exciting for him. And yeah, it was a good game all around by the Cougars. Just underwhelming, I think. A lot of points left on the board. And I really just wish BYU was able to capitalize on some of those possessions that they took 3 instead of a touchdown. But I digress. They're 2-0. They have a bye week this week. Hopefully they can sort some of those things out. We'll move on to Utah here. Utah Utes, ranked number 20th in the country. Week 1, they played UCLA. They won 43-10 in a game that was never really a game at all. Utah scored 13 points in the first quarter. By halftime, it was 23-7. And UCLA could not get anything going at all. Devin Dampierre went 21 for 25, almost a flawless game. 206 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. He also led the rushing game, 16 carries, 87 yards, and a touchdown, so 3 total for Devin Dampierre on the day. Wayshawn Parker, 11 carries for 62 yards and a touchdown. The Utes, their defense was elite. UCLA could not move the ball at all. And we'll talk about the defense. Nico Iamaleava only went 11 for 22, 136 yards with a touchdown and an interception. And there was just nothing that UCLA could really do. Couldn't move the ball. They could not stop Utah. Devin Dampierre was running around like a madman in the pocket, and there was nothing that UCLA could do about it. So Utah's defense held UCLA to 84 rushing yards and 136 passing yards. That's a recipe for success. If you're going to hold them to that few yards, they're not going to do really much against you. And then this past week, Utah played Cal Poly, and similar to BYU versus Portland State, just an absolute smashing from beginning to end. Utah wins 63-9. 2 minutes into the game, Utah was up 7-0. It was clear from the get-go that it was going to be a slaughter, and there was nothing that Cal Poly could do about it. So Cal Poly falls to 1-1 on the year. Utah is 2-0. In this one, Devin Dampierre went 17 for 23, Um, yeah, 17 for 23. No turnovers again, which is going to be very important this year for Utah. That was their problem all season long last year. The offense couldn't move the ball, and they continually shot themselves in the foot and turned the ball over. So, Devin Dempierre, 17 for 23, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. And then Bird Ficklin got into the game, true freshman. He went 4 for 4, 53 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Nate Johnson made a reappearance in this one. He had 11 carries, 59 yards to lead the rushing game, no touchdowns. Bird Ficklin, 2 touchdowns on 5 rushes for 55 yards. Devin Dempierre, 4 rushes for only 25 yards. He was really throwing the ball this week. And Ryan Davis led the receiving, 6 receptions for 58 yards and a touchdown. And like I said, the defense was just overwhelming. Only 3 sacks for the Utes, but 9 tackles for loss. They had 2 interceptions on the day. And then Dylan Curtis, 9 for 9 on extra points, no field goals. So, yeah, what you'd expect from a Power 4 versus FCS game. Moving on to Utah State. They are 1-1 with the former Ute at the helm, Bryson Barnes being their starting quarterback. Diving into the box score, they started the year off with UTEP at home. Bryson Barnes went 19 for 28, 233 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. That's going to be a common theme in this show. I'm always going to harp on the interceptions. That's a killer. You cannot turn the ball over. Miles Davis, 12 carries, 88 yards, and a touchdown. And then Bryson Barnes went 15 carries, 29 yards, and a touchdown. 2 Bryson Barnes touchdowns. And then Miles Davis also led the receiving game. 6 receptions for 61 yards. No touchdowns. But he did leave the receiving in yards. The big thing for Utah State was the sacks. They were giving up sacks left and right. This has been a problem for years, it feels like, at Utah State. They cannot protect the quarterback. And it happened again. Gave up 6 sacks to UTEP. 12 tackles for loss. Utah State has got to find a way to keep the quarterback safe, or else they're going to have a long year. It's just that simple. You cannot get sacked 6 times and tackled for loss 12 times and expect to have success. It's just not going to work. Utah State started this game out down 10-7. But 10-3, I'm sorry. And then Miles Davis busted off a 58-yard run for the touchdown, and Utah State never gave the lead back after that. So it was a good win for the Utah State Aggies. It was good to start the year off 1-0. However, they did not stay 1-0 for long. Following week, this past week, they played at number 19, Texas A&M, where they lost 44-22. Before this game, Utah State was a 20. Actually, the spread opened up to 34.5. When I had checked it beforehand, it was 28. And I said to take Utah State to cover, and they did. They did. They only lost by 22 points. But it was a rough day at the field for sure for Utah State. In the first quarter, it was 6-10. Utah State had it within 1 at one point. It was 7-6, and then in the second quarter, Texas A&M took over and they piled on 20 points before halftime. Halftime was 30-6. I'm sorry. They scored 20 points in the second quarter alone. Diving into the box score here, Bryson Barnes, 15 for 30, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, which is good, but the completion percentage has to be higher than 50%. You're not going to win many games. only throwing 15%. Marcel Reed went 19 for 28, 220 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He left the game with an injury in the fourth quarter, I believe, and Miles O'Neill took over. He went 3 for 5 for 99 yards, 1 touchdown, and Utah State did get an interception on him. Miles Davis had 10 carries for 50 yards. He's going to be a big part of this offense this year. Miles Davis is going to be the leader of this offense, I think. I think he's really going to have to carry this offense. And, yeah, I think that's going to be super, super important for Utah State. And, again, in this one, 6 sacks given up by this offensive line. It's going to be a common theme, I think, and that's really going to hurt the Aggies is the sacks. You have to be able to protect the quarterback, and then 9 tackles for loss. So you're not protecting the quarterback, and you're not helping your running backs. You're not helping on screenplays. You've got to find a way to protect the quarterback, and Utah State just does not do that efficiently. They had a little bit of a spurt in the second half, scoring 8 in the third and 8 in the fourth, but they also gave up 14 in the second half. So Utah State falls 44-22 to Texas A&M. The past 2 times they've played in SEC territory, things have not gone their way. We all remember what happened against Alabama, getting shut out. But yeah, Utah State 1-1, BYU and Utah 2-0. It's kind of funny to me how similar the resumes are of BYU and Utah. They both beat a Power 4 team from California, former Pac-12, and then they both demolished a FCS school by 60-plus points. So, very similar resumes. Utah's ranked 20th, BYU's unranked. I'm not really sure how the polls are being decided right now, but I digress. Yeah, it was a great first 2 weeks for the state of Utah, going 5-1. So it's off to a good start here in Utah, and yeah, that was the recap. All right, let's get into the previews for this coming week and my score predictions for the weekend. BYU is on a bye week this week. It's kind of odd to have a bye week, week 3. I don't know if I love that, but I think that they have some things on offense, especially that they need to clean up and address. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for them to be on a bye week. They can really focus on the task at hand. They can really focus on ECU, and they can clean up those things on offense, like I was saying. I'm hoping against ECU we have a bit more of an open playbook for Bear Bachmeier to really dive into college football and not be so conservative at the QB position. So Utah State, they are back at home this coming week on the 13th against Air Force at home. Utah State is underdogs to the Falcons, 4.5-point underdogs at home. I don't think that line is great. I think Utah State should be able to handle the Falcons, but it's all going to come down to protecting the quarterback. Like we've talked about, Bryson Barnes has to be able to sit back there and deliver passes, and he can't be running for his life and getting sacked over and over again. So it's really going to be important for Utah State to protect Bryson Barnes. Let's go to look at Air Force a little bit here. So the Falcons, they are 1-0. They beat Bucknell 49-13 in week 1. So they're not going to pass the ball a whole lot. We know that. We know that going into this game. They're not going to pass the ball a whole lot. Yeah, Josh Johnson has thrown 7 passes. He threw 7 passes in game 1. He was 4 for 7 for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was sacked once. And then they have Liam Zarka, who was 2 for 2 for 47 yards. So they're going to roll out a couple different. They're going to throw the ball with a couple different guys. But you really just need to be ready for the triple option. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run, the swing passes and the sweeps and all those things. So it's really just going to. Utah State really needs to contain the edge in this game. They need to be able to suck everything back inside and not give up the edge. Yeah, that's really the name of the game. Air Force has 6 total sacks in their first game. Again, that's against Bucknell, so that's not super impressive. But it is, something. They're going to bring pressure. And I really think that Utah State can beat them over the top. I don't think that the Air Force's corners and safeties can hang with the receiving core of Utah State. So I think it's really important for the Aggies to be aggressive in the passing game as long as they can protect Bryson Barnes. That's going to be the key. Can you protect Bryson Barnes? Can you give him time to deliver these passes and let him help you? That's going to be the key for Utah State. Protect Bryson Barnes, and I think that you win this game. Moving on to Utah, they are at Wyoming up in Laramie, and they are 22.5-point favorites. Spread is 23.5. So, I don't see Utah having any problem with the Cowboys. This is a Cowboys team that is not super impressive. They beat Akron. They only put up 10 points against Akron. They beat Akron 10-0. And then Northern Iowa, they won 31-7. So their defense isn't giving up a ton of points, but they're not playing good competition at all. So I don't really foresee Utah having much of an issue here. I don't think Wyoming is going to be able to contain Devin Dampierre. I don't think they will. They're not going to get any kind of pass rush on the Utah offensive line, which may be the best in the country. And, yeah, I don't think that there's any way that Utah really struggles in this one. But you never know. You don't want to be too overly confident and then things sneak up on you. Caden Anderson, quarterback for Wyoming. In week 1 against Akron, he went 19 for 36, 260 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. That is not very good. 260 yards is good, but that completion percentage is not. And 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio is not. Now, Sam Scott rushed for 29 carries and 132 yards. That's an average of 4.6. No touchdowns, but I would expect a heavy dose of the run in this game against Wyoming. And I don't really foresee Wyoming being able to run the ball very effectively against Utah's front. So, Wyoming had 3 sacks against Akron. That's not super impressive considering that Akron is terrible. And, yeah, I think Utah is going to steamroll Wyoming, if we're being honest. I don't think it's going to be much of a game. I don't think it's going to be much of a game from the jump. So, I would definitely bet Utah to cover in this one. And then against Northern Iowa, the Northern Iowa Panthers, 31-7. So they're not giving up a ton of points. Caden Anderson, 17 for 23, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then Landon Sims also got into this game, and he went 3 for 3, 23 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. So I think Wyoming is going to get steamrolled in this one. I don't think it's going to be close. I think that Utah is going to finish the preseason, the out-of-conference schedule 3-0. I don't think they're going to have any issues. Laramie can be kind of a weird place to travel to. But I don't think that Utah's going to struggle. I don't think they're going to have any issues. What time is this game kicking off at? This game's at 6 p.m. So yeah, I don't foresee anything weird happening there. Yeah, so with that, let's get into the score prediction. All right, score prediction time. We'll start with Utah against Wyoming. I don't see this being much of a game at all. I think Utah's going to go in there, handle business, and it's not going to be a contest. I am going to predict. We'll go Utah 38, Wyoming 10. I don't think. I don't think Utah is going to have a problem. And I don't think Wyoming is going to be able to move the ball efficiently at all. I think that touchdown in that 10 points from Wyoming is going to come late in the game in garbage time. I don't think that it is going to be a good night for Wyoming. Utah's probably going to turn them over a couple times, and I don't think Utah's going to turn the ball over at all. So you win the turnover battle, and you go in as a 23-point favorite. I don't see a world where you lose that game. So that is my prediction, 38-10 for the Utes. Moving on to Utah State. This one is hard for me to predict because Air Force, all of the military academies, they are very hard to predict. They run a style of football that is so different than anybody else. It's weird. It's unpredictable. It's hard to prepare for. It's hard to simulate it in practice the way that they actually run it. It's very effective, and it wears a defense down the way that they run the ball all over you all night long. It's hard to play good defense for a full game against the military academies. They just run so hard, and they run over and over again. You can't take a play off because that if you do, that's the play that's going to pop, and it's going to go for a touchdown. So yeah, Utah State at home, 4.5-point dogs in this one. Let's see. I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game. The over-under is 50. I don't think they're getting there. I'm going to say Utah State 17, Air Force 13. I don't think that Utah State is going to be able to score a ton, but I also don't think the Air Force is going to be able to either. These games with the academies, they're very short games. They run the ball and the clock just drains and drains and drains. We saw it in the Army-Kansas State game where Kansas State only had 2 possessions in the second half, I think. Army just ran the ball over and over and over again. And the clock just drained and drained and drained. So that's kind of what I see this game being. I think Air Force is going to run the ball a lot, and I think that it's going to take a lot of time off the clock, not giving either team very many possessions to work with. That's how I foresee this game going. So, that'll be my prediction. Utah State 17, Air Force 10. And with that, we'll head to the outro. All right, and with that, that's going to end the first episode of the Red, Royal, and Blue podcast. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, turn on that bell notification so you don't miss any uploads. I believe the schedule for me is going to be I will upload Sunday with a post-game video going over the games, and then I'll probably post Tuesday or Wednesday every week to do the recap and do the previews and my score predictions. So, my name is Tate Goodlow. You can find me on Instagram at Tate Goodlow. You can find this show on YouTube and Spotify at the Red, Royal, and Blue podcast. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.